Hello everyone, we're doing something different and new and cool.
If you're listening to this episode before March 2024, we are doing a new special, spectacular award show that has nothing to do with other award shows also happening in March. We are celebrating all 7 Child's Play films. We have got 15 categories on our Twitter at CHUCKYVISION. Pinned will be a tweet linking to the poll, the online poll. Put your votes in. Deadline is TBA, but it will be late February.
So Dev's put loads of fucking effort into this. I've put no effort. So please do join in. Please take part. Tell us what you think at CHUCKYVISION on Twitter.
Make your voice matter. We will factually figure out what is the best Chucky movie.
Factually. We made this.
And welcome to another episode of CHUCKYVISION, the podcast that covers all things Chucky, the movies, the TV show, and all the gubbins in between. This is definitely a gubbin. It's one of our super special little bonus episodes for the 5th anniversary of the We Made This network. I am your host, Devin Elson. With me, as always on CHUCKYVISION, is Mark Adams, except he's covering his own podcast, Shipwrecked and Comatose, the Red Dwarf podcast. How are you, Mark?
I'm alright. I suppose I'm representing Shipwrecked and Comatose. The tenuous link that Chris Barry's in it, who played Rimmer from Red Dwarf, he's in it for about 3 or 4 minutes max.
Yes, this is tenuous on every degree. Well, not for the 3rd podcast, because we're also joined with Rob Yeomans of Cinemortuary. And Rob, this is very much in your wheelhouse of shit horrors.
Yes, Dev, it is. What you've done here, guys, is you've decided to do a shit horror film, and you've come to the right place for someone to join you for that one. As I drink from a Freddy vs. Jason coffee cup.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Now, yeah, I do want to bring that up with you, Rob. I say shit horror, but not every movie you do is strictly shit. You've covered a lot of movies that I enjoy. Case in point, Freddy vs. Jason. And you have covered Bride of Chucky. You guys talk about your history of Chucky in that, but do you want to talk about Chucky up here just a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love a psychopathic murdering doll? I've always had a deep affection for that franchise, and I do deeply enjoy what you guys do over at CHUCKYVISION. Great podcast name, by the way.
That was me.
Well done. There it's straight in with the credit. Straight in. Yeah, I just think it's dead fun, isn't it? I mean, I must confess, I've not actually seen much of the TV series. I've seen odd bits and bobs here and there, but yeah, I think there's a certain shasha factor, but also a legitimately quite good factor that fuses interestingly together in that franchise. It's one that we need to explore a bit more, I think, on the Cinemortuary podcast. But yeah, Chucky is one that I've revisited a few times since my teenage years. It always pops a popcorn.
You guys like to cover sequels, and you did Bride. You if you're going to do any other, you could probably do Seed of Chucky. That's the most gonzo insane one.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's. I think that's the perfect way of describing it, isn't it? I don't really have much to add other than insane. Yes, I think that may well be a strong candidate.
And yes, the show, I don't know, the show feels a bit more delicate, a bit more nuanced, but yeah, the show does veer back into that Seed of Chucky territory at times.
Nice. Well, it's nice to veer into that territory, I think, isn't it?
I like that territory, but a lot of incels do not.
Apparently not.
And, of course, the tenuous movie that links all 3 of us together, me at least, but still.
I'm not so sure about that.
Okay, it doesn't really link Chucky in, but it's fun to talk horror anyway. We are talking about the 2006, in quotations, movie, When Evil Calls. It has magic, so that's kind of Chucky related. It has bad things happening to younger kids, and that's sort of similar to Chucky. But other than that, it's there's a lot and also not much.
So, When Evil Calls was released in 2006. What's this thing about it being the first web series, what the fuck?
Yeah, I saw that on IMDb. The world's first horror series for mobile phones, extended with extra footage for the DVD release. So, 2006 is the release of the movie. I'm not sure exactly when the web series came out, because if you go on IMDb, and if you go on multiple different websites, this is also listed as a series. Because in the movie, there's almost like a DVD menu that comes up every time, and it says which episode you're on. So, it was a web series at some point, originally?
Yeah. So I think it was, like, released for mobile phones. Is that why the quality is so terrible?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe they thought we don't need to light this or shoot it properly if it's only going to be on a mobile phone. But also, like, I'm trying to think back to mobile phones in 2006. Like, they weren't the device they are now. So I can't imagine this played like anything other than shit on a 2006 phone of any kind.
No, it would have looked even worse, probably. I mean, if anything, maybe that's the preferred way. That's the, when people say, like, oh, you have to watch Oppenheimer in IMAX, it's the definitive way to watch it. Maybe we had to watch this on a shitty mid-2000s phone.
Dev, did you just compare When Evil Calls to Oppenheimer? Because that's that's a stretch.
Tangentially.
I like it. That's the tagline for this episode.
I mean, it felt like I was watching it.
And so, we've kind of already touched on this. It isn't the best film, is it? And that is reflected in its Rotten Tomatoes score of 14%. And that is just the audience rating. It hasn't had enough reviews to have a average from the actual critics. So that also probably tells you more than you need to know.
Yes, indeed. Now, the first thing that struck me was that this was directed by Johannes Roberts.
I saw that, yeah. An actual director.
Yeah, he makes films that are actual films. So he's best known for making, I guess, 47 Meters Down and its sequel, Shark Fun. That's not the name of the sequel. That's what it should have been called. And I think he directed The Strangers Pray at Night and a really shasha recent reboot of Resident Evil, I think. But they're all actual films.
I will go to bat a little bit for that Resident Evil movie. I thought it was alright.
I mean, that's a you really stepped into bat for an interesting one there, Dev. Tell me more.
I think it's got problems as a final product. I think that film would have benefited by being two movies, just Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, okay, I see that. Like an expanded universe franchise you pitch in for your Well,
just because it tries to ram two plots together,
yeah.
And it feels very rushed, and it's quite a short film. But, like, I mean, in comparison to this, that is a movie. A real movie.
Oh, yeah, compared to this, it's like Citizen Kane.
This is just bizarre as a film. It's kind of like, well, it's 20 little mini vignettes, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen an anthology film quite like this, because there's loads of films to compare it to, like Creepshow, Tales from the Crypt, Dark Side, films like that. But those are usually at max 3, 4, maybe 5 segments. And so those are 25 to half an hour. And you really get to know the characters. There's a build-up. There's, a payoff. With this, though, the episodes are so short. It's like, character makes a wish, it goes bad immediately, like the next minute. Each episode is only about 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, this, as you say, because we've, on Cinemortuary, in December, just gone, we've actually just covered VHS 2, which is another interesting example of an anthology film. But I'm with you, I think I've never seen an anthology film before where each of these stories are connected to a larger narrative.
It reminded me of Urban Gothic, which was a horror series in the 90s on Channel 4. But I also wrote Shit Wishmaster.
Yeah.
Shitmaster, yeah.
No, it does feel like a TV show at times, because it is like the same setting, sort of the same main cast of characters. There are people that keep reappearing throughout. But then, yeah, because of the way it's structured, that you don't get really any characterization. You get like the bully, the fat kid, the popular kid, whatever. But like they're nothing more than that.
Yeah, it reminded me of, this is a real sort of early to mid 2000s deep cut here. On E4, they used to do things called E-stings, which were little sort of bumpers for the channel, but it was like a competition for filmmakers to make their own E-stings. And they were about 30 seconds long. And, you know, you had to send them into E4 and the winners were featured on the channel. And it feels a bit like that for an hour and a quarter. It just feels like students who have made a little sting for a bigger narrative.
Yeah, and I think if the effects had been practical rather than bloody awful CGI, I think I might have enjoyed it a little bit more, but there wasn't really any kind of horror that was my kind of horror, because anything that was creative ended up being shit CGI.
Yeah.
So the idea is, it is a series of 20 little mini vignettes, like you say, which are linked together with the narrative of a character called the janitor. And the janitor is played by the remarkably good actor, Sean Pertwee. And, you know, we've also got Chris Barry in this as well, two, well, relatively respected actors. Remember, this is post Lara Croft. So Chris Barry is an international film star, sort of, at this point. And yes. He took this gig after Lara Croft. And why? Why did either of them take this gig?
Yeah. I think maybe, I don't know if they just had a day off and they were like, I don't know. I'm with you, Mark. It's bizarre. I don't know why anyone would choose to do this.
Yeah, Sean Pertwee especially acts like his life depends on it. He is giving it his all in these in-between segments.
Yeah.
He does chew the scenery quite a lot, and he, you know, as much as you can, really commits to the part of this kind of like crazy, almost Lovecraftian narrator. Whereas Chris Barry, it does feel like he's phoned it in.
Well, you can't do much to it because his role is so small. There's almost nothing to it. He gives his typical Rimmer, Britta sort of, you know, snooty head master, like, vibe. But, yeah, there's nothing to it because, like, oh god, we'll get to some of his scenes, but, like, there's moments where it seems like he's covering things up, but there's no story behind it, there's no context behind it, so it's just quirky comedy for the sake of it.
Yeah, I think they could afford him for one day, and they just scheduled all his stuff on one day, and he just came into work and then left again.
That doesn't seem completely and utterly unreasonable.
Yeah.
So, I think we should just very quickly go through each of the 20 little vignettes and discuss them very, very quickly. It's a bit like when I run this magazine's episodes on Shipwrecked and Comatose. Sometimes it's like, this happened, let's move on. But let's try it. First up is The Wish, and really, evil clown with balloons? It doesn't start with much originality, does it?
No, and there's nothing more to this fucking clown. I don't think we even get a name for him. That's how generic he is.
Pennywise?
Yeah, it's really poor. As soon as I saw the clown, I was like, yeah, I'm out.
That's really fucking early, Rob.
I know, yeah. I know. I was like, why? I mean, I think luckily for me, well, to kind of pick up on what you guys were saying about the clown, I thought the clown was going to be featured much more heavily, which was both a good and bad thing. Bad in the sense that it's naff, but it would have been good in the sense to have some kind of context of its existence. So yeah, when my initial reaction was assuming that this clown would be around much more than it is.
Yeah, and yeah, it sets up that it's a djinn, it sets up that it's Shit Wishmaster, but these things are so shallow that I think I'm just going to move on to number 2, which is called Bad Trip. And yeah, I mentioned the shit CGI. It really is shit in this scene. The makeup post is actually okay, but the burn face CGI, I was like, oh, this is going to be a hard watch.
Yeah.
This is a really weird episode as well, because episode 1 wasn't its own contained story. This is like part 2 of episode 1. And 2, compared to all of the other episodes, which are you make a wish, something bad happens to you, nothing bad happens to the person who makes the wish. Like, it's completely divorced from the person wanting to be popular. Like, another wish happens, and then something bad happens to a third person.
Yeah, I think the idea is that it all comes back to her as the first person who wishes, and it's all her fault kind of thing. But it's done so clunkily that it doesn't really make any sense.
No, nothing bad happens to her throughout the entire film. So there's no real reason why she actually feels the need to undo it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it would be good, I think it would be remiss of us not to touch on the absolute shasher text message effects when someone receives a message that reminds me of the, like, you wouldn't steal a car, like, you know.
Oh, I remember that vividly. I think I enjoyed watching that for the 1 millionth time more than I enjoyed watching this.
Yes.
Yeah, oh god, yeah, these texts are a fucking eyesore. They're an eyesore the first time, and they're an eyesore like the 20th time. And we don't need, I guess because it's a web series, you can watch any of them out of order, but like in a movie, we don't need to fucking see the same thing flash up.
We see those same words so many times, and it isn't cool. And it's not as sophisticated as, perhaps, Sherlock when they use text messages on screen.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to think to myself, I was trying to put myself into like 2006 as I was watching it. And I still think that would have looked absolutely fucking rubbish in 2006. You know, I don't think time has been unkind. I think it's just naff.
Also, just from top, I got this off Letterboxd, but it's never a good sign when the title of a film straight up lies to you. When Evil Calls is wrong, because it doesn't. Evil Texts.
Yeah.
That's actually a very good point. I think we should refer to it as When Evil Texts from this point on.
Oh yeah, that's what it does. So
Yeah.
It's so very mid-thousands, isn't it? Where everyone was a little bit cyberpunky, fear of technology, but everyone loved it kind of bollocks.
Yeah, exactly. That very much a product of its time.
I'm trying to think about mobile phones in 2006. I had my first mobile phone in 1998 when my mother bought me one because there was a gigantic queue for the phone boxes at university. So at that point, I was on a 3310 with Snake. But by 2006, there was rudimentary but expensive internet access on your phones, right?
Yeah, 2006. Yeah. I've just taken the liberty of having a little Google of best mobile phones of 2006, because that's the kind of thing I do. And this was the era of the Motorola Razr, if you remember that one, the little flippy thing.
I always wanted a Razr.
Yeah. So that's what you're watching this film on, your Motorola Razr.
Wow. Next up is Pussed Away, and it's about a kid who gets bullied because he has spots, and this genuinely resonated with me. As a kid, there was a lad at my scout group who had acne, and he was called Pizza Face. And so yeah, this was something I recognised from the bullying that I gently ignored and was grateful for that they didn't bully me for being gay. So, you know, it was quite grim, actually. This is the only segment, I think, that hit hard with me because it kind of something I remember from my childhood.
Yeah, I mean, there's actual horror elements here. You know, someone getting trapped in a bin and attacked by rats. It's pretty horrific.
Yeah, I think credit where credit's due. This one was good. It had some real kind of like a message to say about bullying, and the wheelie bin image was really grim with his hand coming out of it. and the practical effects were really nice with his eaten face, but it was so dark. It's like there's no happiness in this film, really.
It is also a little fucked up that those bullies left him trapped in a bin overnight, and then they checked up on him the next morning, like they were intending to leave him overnight. Like,
yeah,
that's not even part of like the wish or anything. That's just really fucked up bullying.
Yep. But I think, bizarrely, strangely realistic, some of the bullying that I saw at school was this vicious.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've ever been party to something on the level of, or witnessed or heard, someone being left in a bin overnight. But the elements of some of the bullying is pretty accurate, and I think also, especially 15, 20 years ago, the school's reaction to it is actually, in my opinion, quite accurate as well. There was a lot of failing to deal with bullying when I was at school, anyway.
It is. It's strange though for 2006. There was a lot more homophobic bullying in 2006, whereas in this movie, being gay is not really a problem. Although I guess it's very male view lesing, but still, that's they're doing it out in public, and no one seems to have a problem with it.
Yeah. We'll talk about those in a minute. Let's move on to number 4, which was Diet, DIE-T, clever. And my notes read just 3 words: horrible fat shaming.
Yeah, brutal.
This is an example of when you're like, oh, there's not going to be anything fucking redeeming in this movie. Where it's just like, oh, I want to get thinner, and then the wish is he gets crushed by a van.
Yeah, and I think the scene where he's sat eating in the canteen is so through the lens of someone who's a bit of a fattest bully as well. Like, it was grim, was this?
It's quite a cruel film in a lot of ways, and I know horror's supposed to be cruel, but I don't know, this just felt almost a different kind of cruel.
Yeah, but there's nothing redemptive about it for anybody at any point.
No, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Next up is Beauty and the Geek, which, if this isn't something almost straight out of Revenge of the Nerds, I don't know what it is. There's a really grim geek stereotype, and just like Revenge of the Nerds, this is pretty fucking rapey.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's gross, and then the twist resolution is also just shit. It's so weird. And it's like, we don't even know what the fuck happens to that guy. Is he dead? Is he alive? There's no consequences.
No, he kind of gets what I refer to as American History X'd.
I thought that! Because he's getting his head smashed on a curb. I was like, oh my god, Discount Becky Lynch is going to turn into Edward Norton.
Yes, Discount Becky Lynch and Gemma Chan.
Oh my god, this is when I realised. I didn't click until now. That's Gemma fucking Chan.
Yeah, I can't imagine this is like on a list of career highlights.
But it's really, really early though, isn't it, for her?
It is, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's so fucking weird. That's Gemma Chan making out with Lois Winstone, as in one of the Winstone kids. Like, what's his name? The British guy.
Ray Winston.
Ray Winston, yeah. One of his kids.
One of Ray Winston's kids?
Yep. She has a similar career to Gemma Chan. I looked it up. Her last role was in Game of Thrones as Town Whore.
Oh my, okay.
So, I don't know, sort of similar to the Eternals.
But I think this is something, okay, so if we're going to try and find a positive from it, it is really rapey. It is your typical incel, geek stereotype, nasty shit, and it's really rapey. And he shows real entitlement that there's an attractive lesbian woman that he feels should be fucking him, and he gets punished for it. I guess you could call that a positive?
I think that's a positive if that was the intention of the filmmakers, which I'm not 100 if it was or not.
Yeah, I don't think we even know they're lesbians. I think that's the twist. Again, you can put thought into it, but I don't think there's any thought into it, because we'll get to some of these later episodes. Johan Roberts has done more legitimate films, but his directing in this is absolutely atrocious. It's the way he goes up in people's faces, and especially when the nudity and the lesbianism in this, it's so like 2006 porn. It's awful to look at.
Yeah, no. And I think the next one is the worst example, or one of the worst examples of that.
Well, before we look at that, though, I do want to talk about the introduction of some important characters. One, it's Rimmer, basically. He's a bit Rimsy, isn't he, in this, when Chris Barry finally appears for his, what's essentially a cameo. So, yeah, I feel like I should mention that this is where Chris Barry first appears as the headmaster. And we also see the introduction of Nelson and Ringwald. And what the fuck is Ringwald?
Yeah, very fucking bizarre. This is like the clearest intention of like, oh, isn't this funny? And it's not.
No. I mean, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of the police, but this guy would have been fired a long time ago.
Yeah, this guy was in Amelie. I did a bit of research around him because I recognised him, yeah.
And also, the other actor is Sean Brosnan, as in one of Pierce Brosnan's kids.
Madness, this. Madness.
There's so many weirdly recognisable people in this.
This is ridiculous. But the one redeeming thing about Ringwald's character, at least for me, was a little bit of nostalgia because he drives a 2CV. I've always wanted a 2CV, or at least to have a go in one. Apparently they're notoriously peculiar to drive.
Yeah, I think they're really difficult to drive, aren't they?
Mm. Next up is dribbling, and I just wrote tits.
Yeah, I think I just wrote gross.
Yeah, this is so gross. It's like, they make it very clear, this is a sixth form. Like, the age is 16 to 19, so like, yes, legal, but it doesn't feel right watching it.
It is super creepy. And then naked Chris Barry, that wasn't on my prediction list.
Yeah, it's true.
They got him in for one day and they make him do that. Jesus Christ.
I mean, Chris Barry has done lol naked scenes before in Red Dwarf. He did it in Series 8. But that was well done and funny and justified. They had these nanobots that ate all people's hair. And so, you know, they were completely naked because these nanobots were eating everything.
They don't get him as naked as the other actor, who gets his arse out. Yeah. Chris Barry is firmly sat down behind a desk.
That was very much another, like, ha-ha fat people thing, wasn't it, the other guy?
Not quite as grim, but yeah, you are right. Number 7 is Brain Dead. And I'm sorry, I finally suspended my disbelief when he didn't get kicked out of an exam for having his phone out. Come on.
Yeah. And when the teacher's already watching him.
Nothing about this episode makes any fucking sense at all.
One popcorn and one turd on the Cinemortuary scale, though, for the clearly papier-mâché brains on the pencil.
Oh, it's awful.
Oh, yeah, fucking weird effect. A weird death. Why? I don't even know what caused that. Did the wish cause that? Did he just do that anyway?
I think my interpretation was he just did it anyway because he was hearing his thoughts, and his thoughts were how he was going to not get an A, so he's just going to give up on life.
Yeah, the tone of this movie is so fucking confusing, because then the teacher walks up, completely nonchalant, picks up the pencil with brain matter on it, and then, like, sniffs it?
Why wasn't she horrified and traumatised?
This happens a bit throughout the narrative. They're kind of trying to do this, like, uncanny valley, the teachers kind of accept what's going on kind of thing, but it doesn't really work because they don't develop it in any way. If there was more interaction with the shit clown and the teachers, then maybe that's something it'd still be shit, but it's just an idea that's not really fleshed out in any way. Or that was my interpretation of it.
Yeah, and again, we've got the ongoing plot, if we can call it that, where Samantha and Ringwald first encounter each other, and it sets up almost like a rivalry kind of thing, but it's so limp.
Yeah.
Next up is Pretty Dead. And, okay, as a follow-up to a previous episode, I quite like that, but I work in the funeral industry. And this is a British film. I can tell you with absolute certainty that Right, how many times have you, as British people, ever seen an embalmed body?
0.
I remember my granddad's wake was an open casket.
Really? That's very, very rare in this country. You've kind of disproved what I was trying to say, but I have worked in the funeral industry for 4 years, and I have never seen or heard, until today with you, of embalming happening in this country whatsoever. It is so rare, and it's an American trope, and every time I see it in a British film, I'm like, what the fuck? It's like you consulted no one from that industry. It really did kind of stick out to me because that's my industry, and they just didn't, shit, don't like. And they also called it a casket. It's a coffin.
I love how these are the things you're really digging into in this segment, Mark, not the hilarious ambulance smash.
God, this is like the hardest I laughed at this movie. This wheelchair moment is so fucking funny.
It's a little bit Mac and Me, isn't it?
It is Mac and Me, yeah. She really goes. Like, you can tell in the first shot when the mother lets her go when she's in the wheelchair that she's starting to slow down. And then in the second shot, she's still wheeling at a pace, like right into the road. And she makes zero efforts to stop herself.
Have you seen Mac and Me, Rob?
I have not. No.
Mate, get it watched. It's a classic of shit film.
Do you know the context? Did you ever see any of Paul Rudd on Conan when he shows the same film?
Yeah. I've seen a couple of clips of that. Yeah.
Yeah, the kid going off the cliff.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to watch Mac and Me again. I fucking love that film. It's just pure tat. Next up is Dangers of Dieting. And once again, I wrote tits.
Yes. This is crap. I mean, they all are, but this is really crap.
I don't even understand why they need to get her tits out. It's like... Because I couldn't tell at first before the wish, like, is she thin or is she fat? Because she's neither. She's just completely normal. I mean, maybe it's in her head, but, like, if you're going to get the point across, then it needs to be a bit more obvious.
It's a really, really crude, overly simplistic look at body dysmorphia, if that's the case. And the CGI blood was awful, and this is where it was like, I think I'm going to be able to predict everything from this point, because this was so predictable.
It's a student film, isn't it, this? I mean, I don't know how old Johannes Roberts was when he made this. Like, from what I was watching, he was about 16 when he made this, because that's the kind of mentality,
really?
Isn't it? No, I'm being facetious. I think he's probably a bit older than that, but his eye is that of a pervy 16-year-old. It's strange.
Next up is What's Eating You? And Ringwald and the headmaster get more ridiculous. And I want to talk to you about this, actually, Dev, seeing as we're supposed to be like some kind of CHUCKYVISION link to queer romance. Why are they lesbians? There's no context other than let's get some girls snogging, from what I can see.
Absolutely, yeah. It's so male-gazy. And, I mean, I guess you could kind of reclaim it and be like, oh, it's 2006, it's kind of cool that they're so openly gay and no one has a problem with it. There's nothing in this film. A lot of them go to the same well of like, oh, I'm too fat or I'm too thin or I'm too ugly. It's very obvious wishes, but like, there's no wishes about, oh, I'm in the closet or people are mean to me because I'm gay. I don't think there's anything homophobic in this movie. But no, it's simplistic. I mean, these episodes, literally one of my notes was, these episodes are like 4 minutes each, but let's spend 30 seconds of the two girls kissing, because that's the most important part.
Yeah. Next up is Drastic Surgery. And this one, again, from, like you were saying, male gaze, I would go as far as saying this is misogynistic.
Yeah.
Jesus, yeah, that one was Just, that one speaks for itself. Just absolute shit.
Yeah, and mercifully, I think it was one of the shortest ones. I think it was like a minute, if that.
Yeah, it just makes no fucking sense, some of the pacing in this, or some of the way... I appreciate them trying to tell the story in different ways, but, like, that character, there's nothing to her. Like, we know more about, like, the boyfriend and the friends, when he's like, oh, I wish my girlfriend had bigger tits or something. And then she comes in, and it's like, so we don't know anything about her?
It's so callous, and that's reflected in the characters as well. Does someone want to go and get the nurse? A girl's tit has exploded.
Yeah, the other guys reacted like something weird was happening.
So, I'm going to take a pause and ask you, as fans of bad horror, as fans of something that is so bad it's good, did you actually enjoy this film?
Oh, no. I mean, there's a difference between so bad it's good and just fucking turgid shit. And this lands very much on... I think the issue with it is that the shasher on Cinemortuary that we enjoy is, A, generally unproblematic in the way it's constructed, and B, there's some kind of like... there's light and shade to it. This is just... It's just an... Like, I know this filmmaker, do you know what I mean? I've met the kind of bloke that makes this film, and they're just misogynistic, homo-repressed assholes who think that it's funny to mock those that aren't like them. You know, there's no kindness to it, you know, like, and that's a strange thing to say about shit horror films, but there's not enough of the people that have been disgusting getting their comeuppance. Like, the one with the inflatable boobs is a perfect example. What's that girl done to deserve that? And that's just a structural failing and a lack of intelligence, I think. Like, you can't... maybe to do it once, it's like, yeah, that was a bit gross, but we move on. But it does it time after time after time after time. You know, like the exam thing is another example. Like, what did that kid do to deserve that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've got a couple thoughts on just going off Rob. I guess going backwards. Yeah, in terms of like people deserving it and stuff, like Chucky kills people that don't deserve it a lot. You know, good people, nice kids and stuff like that. So like, I don't mind good people having bad stuff happen to them, but like in a real film or a real TV series, there's like context and there's build up and there's characterization. You know, you can feel bad for a person, but there's nothing there's nothing to do with characterization in this quote unquote movie. And that's sort of the other problem I have, where it's, in one way, I appreciate that this wasn't like a 75-minute like actual film where you have like the main cast of characters and then one by one something bad happens to them, because then we'd have the problem of there being like 15 minute pauses in between the kills where it's just nothing but talking, and it would just be absolute shite dialogue with like shite cinematography. That would be boring as fuck. So at least something is happening every other minute in this, but there's no build-up, there's no payoff. Yeah. It's only a couple of these are even marginally clever, and that's saying something. A lot of them are just... I wouldn't even go as far to say as the guy making them is, you know, oh, he hates women or he hates gay people or whatever. Like, I don't think he has hate. It's just... It's the first draft thoughts of like, oh, this would be a clever twist, or this would be a clever twist, and there's just no thought put into it.
Yeah, I think you've both got valid criticisms. For me, I really like the concept, but the reality is it's fucking Wishmaster, and I'd prefer to watch Wishmaster. I think also the idea of short webisodes that then get put together as a film, that's quite clever. It just doesn't work, and it all feels rushed, and I feel like this could be cut to like 5 or 6, 8 wishes or something like that, and it would be a much better 45-minute episode of something like Buffy.
Yeah, I think the thing with that is, what we've kind of got to remember here to an extent is, although we had our fun with Motorola Razrs and stuff earlier and what it was supposed to be seen on. We're not watching this in the context at which it was designed to be watched. However, I'm with you, Mark. I think the fact there is 20 of these feels like an extravagant number to me.
Yeah, and I did mention it very briefly earlier. There was a series called Urban Gothic, which was an anthology telly show, which was like 25-minute episodes, and they were all looked like they were standalone horror. And then the last episode linked all of them together. It was a bit contrived, but it was great fun. And I'd much prefer to watch Urban Gothic.
I would not have minded if they lost a few and they did what they did. Because again, in terms of like Rob said, with structural failure, that the first 2 episodes are like a 2-parter. None of the others are, really. Episode 1, nothing really bad happens in it. Episode 2 is the payoff. And I wouldn't have minded a couple more episodes where it was just set up. And you could do a little bit of characterization. Just a little bit, just to make these archetypes actual people. We are almost near the end of this, but it doesn't fucking feel like it.
No.
It's just the same shit over and over and over again. And a really good example is just, like, the characters, like, what the characters are. We get Becky Lynch and Gemma Chan. They show up in this. They're in it more than the quote-unquote main character. But then, at the same time, they're just in it because they're just, they're the bullies. That's who they are. That's their role. So they're in so many episodes as just a tertiary part of it. And then, we'll get to it, they die. And there's no payoff, there's no build-up.
No.
That's just their character's done. And it has no bearing on the actual plot whatsoever.
No. And again, like we've said, it is just about getting some lazy action, I think.
Yeah, and I guess because they're the bullies. I mean, genuinely, there were some laughs at just how shit this was. I mean, also, I guess this is the same thing, but I did laugh at most of Becky Lynch's deliveries. There's no cleverness to her bullying.
No.
It's like John Carpenter, like 80s bullies. It's so over the top, like, and especially because, I don't know, I think her being British makes it funnier. Like when the Good Enough to Eat episode. And when she just really, like, goes up in that person's face, just a random student, and she's like, "You look good enough to eat. If I ate shit," and then she really laughs at it. Like, no one else is laughing. She's the only one laughing. And it's just like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah. Next up is episode 12, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? And as a tattooed man, you can't get tattoos if you're under 18. If you've got a tattoo and you're under 18, that is illegal, and the tattoo artist should be prosecuted.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed the tattoo thing as well. It was very silly.
I was very annoyed. And, yeah, it's like, really... But, talking about gentle changes to the format, this is actually the first Selfless Wish.
It's another attempt at comedy, I guess, with the subversion of... I don't know what Chris Barry's direction on this was.
No.
The way he says, like, "Oh, and what would you wish for?" Like, what's he going to say? Was he going to be racist? I can't tell.
We'll never know.
No. Now, did you clock who the dad was?
It wasn't someone else famous, was it? Gee.
It was the writer of Slugs. That is Sean Hudson.
Okay, I wouldn't have recognised him, but Jesus.
Yeah, Sean Hudson was a zombie dad for reasons. Rob, have you watched Slugs?
I've heard of it and I've heard bits about it, but I have not yet watched it.
We covered it on my old podcast, Super Tat Film Club, and it is genuinely one of my very favouriteest shit horrors. Get it watched. It's well worth it.
I'll give it on the list.
Again, though, in terms of the comedy, the payoff to this, it's like, okay, he wished it for his dad to come back, and then his dad comes back as a zombie. That makes sense. Well, first off, Samantha answers the door with a golf club, like she's expecting trouble. I don't know why. But then, when the zombie comes in, there's a comedy moment where Chris Barry's like, are you having any trouble there? And she's like, no, I've got it. She kills the zombie. And then she's like, do you have any bin bags? And it's like, what is this? What is this universe? She's completely non-phased with the introduction of a zombie.
It's not even surreal. It's just bollocks.
Yeah, and it's all so badly acted as well.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
And it's really fucked up as well, because it's not just any zombie. It's his dad. Like, her boyfriend's dad. And there's no...
Yeah, and then afterwards, in the wraparound, Sean Pertwee's like, oh, well, he was a dickhead anyway.
Yeah, we haven't talked much about Sean Pertwee, other than choose scenery. He's kind of superfluous. We don't really need his narration.
No, we never find out who he's talking to either, which is very annoying. And we never find out why he's obsessed with saying their name over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's his direction is so weird. He keeps drinking, and I'm not sure if he's actually drunk or not, because his delivery is really intense on some of the jokes. There are many, many jokes. It's very Crypt Keeper from Tales of the Crypt. Like, every other line is a pun on the episode we just watched.
But the Crypt Keeper is camp and fun, and I'm not sure this character is.
No, it's weirdly intense, because he is talking... It's first-person POV, and he's talking to a student, and he keeps... yelling at the student, like, fucking sit there and listen. It's really weird and off-putting.
It feels like you've sat next to the nutter in the pool, the conspiracy theorist, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. And it's so brutally, craply shot in just extreme, weird, shaky cam close-ups. It nearly gave me a headache, the wraparound stuff.
I hate the constant close-ups. There was one bit where someone I think it's where the kid gets crushed by the van, and then it cuts to him like smashing a sandwich and then eating it. And Sean Pertwee drunkenly eating a sandwich was more grim than the actual shot.
Next up is Smoking Kills. And CGI fire.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
And I think maybe I could have made this note at any point after maybe episode 2 or 3. Why is literally no one who is resident to this horror happening in the school? Why is no one traumatized or even acknowledging previous events?
Again, it's another example of that. Like, it feels like they're really trying for like an uncanny valley, like Erie, Indiana kind of. Something's not right here, almost invasion of the body snatchers, pod people-y thing, but it's never even touched upon in a way that the audience can engage with it. It's fucking weird.
They're really thinking that comedy doesn't need context, but I feel like it needs some context. Like, like in It, there's a history of Pennywise attacking Derry, the town. So, like, there's a reason why all the parents and stuff are so... weird about it, like, because they're under sort of a spell, whereas the clown in this is just introduced and there's nothing to the clown, so we don't know if this is just happening or there's a history that makes the adults weird. I guess you just meant to go, oh, it's Pennywise, so it's the same thing.
But that's bollocks.
It is, yeah.
You've got to explain some things a little tiny bit.
In It, it's only the parents. Like, the kids find stuff weird. But in this, no one finds anything weird. There's no consequences. Like, Gemma-chan eats someone. She eats a person. And then that's never referenced.
Nope.
Mr. Barry just puts a severed limb in the bin like it's a fucking crisp packet. Weird.
And the other thing in this episode is have a horror trope, party during horror times. Meh. And also, face horror. I know Don Mancini from Chucky is very into face horror, but there's a lot of face horror in this as well.
There is, and it's... Yeah, a lot of the kills, a lot of the brutalities in this are, as we've said, really shitly done.
And that's the difference, isn't it? Some of the facey stuff in the recent series of Chucky was superb. Andy getting stabbed in the face was great, but... CGI Fireface, get in the sea.
Yeah, fair. I think that's a fair closing comment on that segment there.
Next up is Sight for Sore Eye, and I just don't like the victim getting punished. This kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just cruel, this film, in a lot of ways.
Also, no explanation. Gemma Chan is bi now? Okay.
Good.
Not that is even the focus of this episode, but I was just like, oh, that's how little the filmmaker cares about any like characters and story. That she's just randomly blowing a guy now that we've never met before.
Yeah. Weird. So weird.
I thought the eye horror was okay.
Yeah, it's not the best edited, but like, you know, you have someone falling down on scissors and you don't see it. It's like, yeah, it's cut sort of well enough that you still go, ooh, like,
yeah,
that's gotta hurt.
I think stuff with eyes, it's all about the kind of fear of losing your sight. And I think it actually does that reasonably well. I am trying to find some good in this film. It is quite tough, but I genuinely think they do eye horror well, because that's something that particularly wigs me. Maybe because I'm short-sighted. Maybe that's why I'm particularly wigged by eye horror. But yeah, this did actually get me. I'll give it that. It did actually get me.
I thought that wish was doubly unfair as well, because she said, like, I never want to see his face again. And then I guess the twist is she's never going to see anyone's faces again because she's blind. Like, of all the face mutilations, that was probably the one case where they could mutilate the guy's face. So then no one can ever see his face again.
Yeah, you're right. They could have skinned him or something, couldn't they?
Yeah, something like that. But then, yeah, she takes the pain for some reason.
Next up is Gutted. And I don't want to talk about Ringwald again. It's unwatchable. It's absolutely unwatchable. We could have just had Nelson. There is no need for the Ringwald character.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking with this guy. Like, I totally agree with you, Mark. It's just unwatchable shit.
Was this the whole section of just him in his apartment? Because that was fucking shite. What a waste of time that was.
Yep. And the beautiful on the inside thing, it's getting to the point where everything is painfully predictable. And because the kills are not great, I'm just like, how many more of these are there left?
Yeah, I'm very much like, at this stage, I was like, when we got to, I think we're about episode 15-ish here. I think when we got to like 16, 17, I was like, right, I'm pretty sure there's going to be 20 of these now. Like, you know, at this point I was like, right, surely this is it now. And then I started to realise that it was going to be a nice round 20.
Real fucking convenient of that person to explain their wish as they were dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the info dump.
Next up is Overage Sex, and it's a really distasteful seduction story. And, just no.
Yeah, it's rubbish. She wishes to be old enough to sleep with her teacher, and then she's like an ancient skull woman at the end, and the effects are really bad again.
Yep.
I barely fucking got that one. I was like, what's the twist? She's like possessed? What the fuck is going on? Yeah. Like, that's how shit the effects were. You got it, that she was meant to be turning into a skull? I didn't fucking get it, because it looks so shit.
Yeah. I think this is probably the worst CGI of the entire film, and there's some ropey CGI.
I don't know, mate. I think the Fireface one's the worst. The one that we covered a bit ago with the cigarette smoking.
True.
I mean, at least that's understandable.
Yeah.
But this one, it's like Last Crusade. That's how you do someone aging fast. This is not aging fast.
It's absolute shite.
Yeah. And also, I question literally anyone wishing to be older. But that's because I'm old.
Exactly, yeah.
And also, no offence to the actor, but also, have sex with that guy? Oh, everyone? Like, no offence to him, but like, for like a teenager, he's not like a hunk. You know, like the younger kind of teachers you see. He's just a middle-aged normal teacher.
Yeah. Next up is Good Night and Sweet Dreams. And it's a wish come true for me. Fuck that line. That really annoyed me.
Yeah. Is this where the clown reappears a bit?
Yeah.
Their semblance of trying to start to tie things together.
Yeah, and he's just like Pennywise. It's like, boring.
Yeah, even looks like Pennywise.
I did laugh at their shit attempt of doing like The Exorcist or doing like The Grudge when he's crawling down the stairs. And it's just a man sliding
very
down
slowly.
the stairs.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to hurt himself.
Yeah, it's not scary whatsoever. It just looks really awkward. Like, just go down the stairs, mate.
Yeah. I think at this point, it sounds like all three of us had checked out because there hadn't been very much Chris Barry for me. It wasn't entertaining for Rob, and the lesbians were awful for Dev. So, but I'm looking at my notes for the last three. I'm like, fucking hell. I really had checked out. 18, fucking hell. It was Deadly Embrace. And I've just written, this is crap. Did they run out of money? I can't even remember what happened.
I don't know if they started with money, did they?
This is the payoff, the conclusion to the storyline of the lesbian.
Oh, shit, yes.
I say payoff, like, these have been completely non-characters. They have no tie-in with the story, really. I mean, technically, Becky Lynch causes all of this because she's the bully to Samantha.
True.
But then, there's no tie-in at the end. They just get another wish and then they die. And then that's it. That's both of their characters done.
Bye.
Yeah. Rubbish.
Next up is I Scream, and hooray for that pun we've never heard before.
Oh yeah, this is a follow-up to now Blind Linda, isn't it? And her boyfriend from earlier on.
This one person gets it the worst, and she's just a completely innocent person.
Again, well, it goes back to what I was saying before about there's no comeuppance for anybody, and like going back to what you said before, Dev, about the Child Play franchise, when good people die and bad things happen to good people. They do, but at the end of most of them films, Chucky either gets blown up, melted, or shot to pieces. There's a catharsis there.
That's a nice way of putting it, actually. It doesn't feel like there's any comeuppance, any message in this film other than I wanted to do some horror.
And it makes no fucking sense. It's really weird, actually, that the boyfriend who cheated on her feels bad and actually wants to stay with her. So, like, good, I guess? And then he makes a selfless wish, which is like one of two selfless wishes in the whole movie.
And it punishes her again?
Yeah, fucking weird. In the strangest way possible, that she grows eyeballs in her stomach.
Yeah, I mean, could we not just have one nice thing? Do you know what I mean? Would it have done any harm for someone to have had something work out nicely for them?
What did you think of the tummy eyes? I thought they were shit.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the concept of it as a horrific idea is quite clever, but again, the execution is shasha.
What's shasha?
It's just that's a Cinemortuary term for when we get sick of saying absolute shit because we say it all the time because of the type of films we often watch. We just like to mix things up, Mark,
That is fair. I've probably said absolute shit already like 5 times in this one episode.
This film is definitely shasha. We're nearly there. We're nearly there with our anticlimactic final scene. It's called Homecoming Scream, and press the reset button. You've watched a pointless film.
Yeah, I mean, that was an easy win for Samantha, wasn't it?
Yeah, this fucking clown sucks. Did fuck off.
It's no challenge. Everybody lives. The janitor's pointless. The end. Bye.
Everybody lives that has done something fucking wrong. Like, all the people that haven't done anything wrong are all dead. Odd. So, I'm going to talk very briefly about the music. I had a look at some of it. I knew I recognised one of the tracks, and it was the Cooper Temple Clause, which, credible band. Very, very cool. Another band called District 102. And the end track is by an artist called Emily Maguire. And I quite liked the end track, so I looked it up on Spotify. Emily Maguire gets 647 monthly listens. She's a tiny, tiny artist, but I thought it was actually a pleasant surprise to have a reasonably listenable ending track.
Yeah, a lot of the music isn't bad in this. It's perfectly fine. But, like, I could feel the vibe that these were, like, local bands or bands that the director knew.
And I like that they've sourced local British bands and they've invested in one Cooper Temple Clause track because the director probably liked it. But it's better than, like, generic shit.
Yeah, I thought the music was okay. It was inoffensive, which in this film is probably quite a big statement.
For anyone who's not watching it, there is actually a lot of music in this because every single episode, like, either opens or opens and closes with music. So there's so many tracks in this one soundtrack.
Right. Before we say cheerio, is there anything else that you want to talk about to do with When Evil Texts?
How did you round off on a movie like this? Because a movie that gives you nothing. What do you do with nothing?
We've had a couple of experiences on Cinemortuary like this. I was responsible for one. Dave's responsible for most of them. Wilson's had his moments where you come out of it and all you can say is, it was a thing that happened. I sat down, I watched this on my iPad for an hour and 15 minutes, then it ended. And now I've talked about it.
Like, literally the most diplomatic I can get about it is that a lot of these people on camera ended up doing bigger things. And the director went on to do bigger, if possible, projects. So at least it gave people experience, you know, because it does feel very rinky-dink indie. Like, I'm surprised they filmed all of this on an actual school, because some of the stuff in it is insane, like the nudity. You can tell it gave him some experience, like, because it's, you know, it's a movie, it's a lot of actors, you know, there's effects, there's music, so, like, you know, I guess they went on to bigger and better things. But God, no, as viewing this movie, yeah, shit, what is there to say about it? It's only like 1 hour 15, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels way longer.
I think looking at it like you are, with like giving actors an opportunity, is a really valid point. But then I came here for Chris Barry. He'd already done
Good point.
8 series of Red Dwarf. He'd already been on Spitting Image. He'd already been in Lara fucking Croft. Poor Chris Barry.
Yeah, this is a weird one. I don't know how they got the cast that they got for this. It's really odd.
Thank you for listening to another little special episode of Chucky Vision. This is one of our specials, one of our little bonus specials between parts 1 and 2 for season 3. We've got more specials coming. Where can we find you guys, Mark and Rob? Let's start with Rob.
You can find my good self on Twitter at Dancing Henry, and you can find the Cinemortuary podcast at Cinemortuary on Twitter and on Instagram, and the Cinemortuary podcast on Facebook.
Cool. And Mark Adams, where can we find you?
You can find me at Mark Adams HC on Twitter and Instagram. And if you're looking for Shipwrecked and Comatose, it's at Red Dwarf Pod on Twitter as well. But, you know, the usual. If you're listening to Chucky Vision, you can search for Cinemortuary or Shipwrecked and Comatose on whatever you're listening to it on, and you'll find us.
Yeah, go listen to those podcasts. They're good podcasts. And, of course, people can find me on Twitter at Absolute Travesty. You can find the podcast, as usual, at Chucky Vision. Do go check there, because we're going to be doing specials, and we want some listener engagement with these specials. So we will be doing polls, we'll be doing requests. So go check us out on Twitter. This has been another episode of Chucky Vision. See you guys next time, but until then, wanna play? Chucky Vision is a podcast brought to you by the We Made This Network.
Follow us on Twitter at CHUCKYVISION.
Follow the network on Twitter at we_made_this.
The logo was designed by Elliot Marriott.
Our cover art was designed by Amma at Amma's Comet.
And theme tune was composed by Dark Fantasy Studios.
Wanna play?
If you're a fan of British comedy, particularly broadcast on the BBC, that's been going for a decade or three, try Shipwrecked and Comatose, covering all of Red Dwarf, including those additional specials, heroes and the foes. Anything else, well, who knows? So find us on your podcast apps and be greeted by some friendly chaps and Mark's deep obsession with all cats. It's Shipwrecked and Comatose. We're not on Insta, it's Twitter's hard mode. Red Dwarf Pods are social. Both subscribe and enjoy us a load.